I'm just bothered by the fact that, like, the MLBPA always has their uh, union representatives, has players. The narrative is most powerful union in sports. And yet here's a guy who's a star player, and a story was made up about him. Made up about him. And, like a woman made it public. He lost $100+ million contract with the LA Dodgers. And where is the union stopping and saying, hey, this isn't right? This guy should be playing baseball if his talents are good enough. It's never been about talent with him. So, again, this is all full disclosure. We don't have to tell you any lies. Trevor Bauer's people reached out to us and said, hey, we'd love to do a podcast with you. We'd love to do a live interview with you. And I said, that's awesome. I said, let's get on the phone and discuss it. And all we did was just kind of talk. I don't do interviews, and Jay Stu can attest to this, where you can't ask about this unless there's a legal ramification. And we're going to do this Trevor interview at some point here in the very near future. There was no can't go there. He did an interview with Fox News, and I want to make a bigger point about it, but here's Trevor Bauer on Fox News yesterday.
I know that I've made mistakes. That's kind of what I'm trying to focus on. How do I get better from the experiences that I've had? I made mistakes in my personal life. I'm really detail-oriented when it comes to baseball and my training, but I didn't apply the same level of scrutiny to my personal life. And I made mistakes. I agreed to do things that I shouldn't have done. It was reckless. It hurt a lot of people along the way. Made things very difficult for Major League Baseball, for the Dodgers, my teammates, friends, family, people close to me. So I've done a lot of reflecting on that and made a lot of changes in my life to address that. Not having casual sexual relationships anymore, for example.
Right. So, like, you're discussing some things which are kind of uncomfortable for most people, right? Like, if you're single, you're a grown up and a male, you should be allowed to do what you do. I saw Greg Doyle, who is he's talented as a writer for the Indy Star. And his caption or quote tweet of that interview is, "Oh, you were bullied as a kid, like boo-hoo." And I think, and this, Jay Stu, predates you and I working together. Dan Byer predates you and I working together. Lorraine obviously predates us working together. But I said this about Jameis Winston, just so we're aware. It's completely, Jameis Winston, whatever you think of his personal life before he's gotten to New Orleans, because it does feel like he's kind of become like a lovable, affable character with New Orleans as their backup quarterback. But Jameis Winston, when he's in college, and look, he did dumb stuff. But he was three times he had to go through the process of clearing his name. A Title IX investigation. If you know anything about Title IX investigations on university campuses, it's the margin of the burden of proof is not high. And it's not a kangaroo court, but it's also not the court of law, and it generally sides with the victim or alleged victim. He was cleared by the Title IX investigators. Right? There were no charges. There's not, he was cleared of all this stuff. And even to this day, if you bring up Jameis Winston, you're like, oh yeah, didn't he do something to a woman when he's in college? Like, no. Now the deal in Arizona was creepy and inappropriate, okay, and not acceptable. But one of the reasons the punishment was so harsh was, well, because we all think of him as doing something wrong when he was in college, and his name has been cleared. And it's a weird thing that we do when people have stories made up about them, where they, even though their name is cleared, they still carry a scarlet letter. And again, don't go running to social media and saying Gottlieb's pro-violent offender. Absolutely not. But what's the point of having courts? What's the point of having hearings? What's the point of having all this stuff? And I mean, for Bauer especially, like you just go to his Twitter and he is allowed to write. No one. I've never seen this ever in a civil case where one person sues another and they give up the case and then he's allowed to defend himself and tell what really happened, put out pictures and videos, and you're like, this is a complete sham. Yet he's carrying a scarlet letter like he did something wrong. And he's even apologizing, not for doing anything wrong or doing anything illegal, but for putting himself in that situation, which, okay, I think it's super mature of. It's super mature of him. Like, hey, I'm just, and I think he talked about it there some. He talked about it with me some. Is like, he's kind of like a sports nerd. Wasn't super social, and some of his interactions were seen as kind of awkward. That's what he's known for, right? He was kind of awkward. He was like, yeah, dude, I'm a weirdo. I get it. I was kind of that way when I was an athlete. You know, especially when I was in high school and whatever. Like, if you go to public school in Los Angeles or in Southern California and you're smart but an athlete, and, you know, when you get, especially like middle school and early high school, you're not necessarily mainstream. You kind of do your own thing, and some people can be super awkward. So when you're kind of painting a backstory and then to have a writer make it seem like you're shaming him for talking you through how you got some sort of social awkwardness. And again, I am pointing out Doyle because Doyle does this and he does not read the room and he can be an ass clown sometimes, and this is one of those particular situations. He can do some good stuff too. He's a talented dude. I'm not going to sit here and tell you otherwise. But I think what Doyle speaks to is what a good portion of America thinks, where even though there is a litany of documents and videos, and he's allowed to speak on it, and no one's arguing with the fact that this was a complete, one, it was a setup, and two, it was a sham that he did something illegal to this woman. He's still going to carry a scarlet letter, which is it's an amazing part about our society. Like, we're supposed to live in this incredible country where you're innocent until proven guilty. But for whatever reason, as a man, when the accusations are so awful, and they were awful accusations, no doubt. I mean, I said I was wrong. Because I said, like, look, if this is true, that dude should never touch a baseball again. Shouldn't wear a cap ever again. You don't treat human beings, women, anybody that way. But I was wrong. And that's the only real response you're supposed to have. It's like, man, we were wrong. How do we make it so that we can identify accurately which is a sham accusation and which is real? And I just think it's one of those things where, and this doesn't happen often. It doesn't. Women don't make these things up often. But they do. There are some that do.